I met Caroline in a class I wasn't supposed to take. It was one of those post-grad workshops tucked between real coursework, narratives in modern media, something designed to pad credits more than push minds. But I remember her clearly, even in that back row blur, dark hair pulled into a knot, ankle boots crossed beneath the desk, highlighter already halfway through the syllabus by the time the professor finished introductions. She didn't talk much that first week. But when she did, it was like listening to someone narrate a book they'd already written. Precise, deliberate, no filler. Her words had weight. I found excuses to sit closer with every class, then excuses to walk the same way after. By week 4, we were getting coffee. By the end of the semester, we were spending nights at each other's apartments, ordering cheap Thai, trading edits on papers, sleeping with limbs tangled in a way that made everything else seem secondary. She didn't like loud places, didn't drink much, didn't chase attention. But she liked plans. Structure. Her calendar was color-coded. Her groceries were bought in categories. And I, a little more scattered, more spontaneous, found something grounding in that. We moved in together a year after graduation. Bought a small place in a quiet neighborhood just outside Portland. She landed a solid job at a regional marketing firm. I started building my freelance career from home. We split chores without needing to ask, folded each other's laundry, remembered to check the mail. The little things that feel boring to outsiders but quietly build a life. We got married after 3 years. Small ceremony. Just our parents, siblings, and 2 close friends. She didn't want a big fuss, said the attention would feel performative. I agreed. It was simple, beautiful, private. Early on, we talked about kids. I brought it up once, casually, over brunch, a passing, do you think someday, sort of moment. She didn't flinch, but she smiled with a kind of sadness I didn't expect. I don't think I'm wired for it, she said. I've never felt that pull. I didn't push. Everyone has their line. I figured love meant choosing the person, not the future you imagined with them. And I'd chosen her. So that was that. Over time, the subject never came back up. Instead, we filled our days with travel. We did weekends in smaller cities, found excuses to book flights every other season. She liked planning the itineraries, I liked drifting off course. We made it work. We went hiking, explored quiet bookstores, built a photo wall that told the story of a couple who had figured out how to keep things steady. We hosted dinner parties, kept wine on hand, had our shows and our songs. On paper, we were the type of couple people envied, comfortable, aligned, unbothered by the usual milestones. No pressure. No timelines. Just us. And I believed it. I believed her. We were building a different kind of life. One with quiet mornings and late-night talks, mutual respect and synced calendars. Caroline and I fell into a rhythm that made sense. Not the kind built on urgency or routine out of necessity, but something more deliberate. She liked her life arranged neatly, calendar blocked, meals prepped, emails responded to by the end of the day. I worked more fluidly, from the house, often barefoot and bouncing between projects. But we never clashed over our differences. We complemented each other in ways that felt earned. Mornings were hers. She woke up before the alarm, made the coffee, left the news on low in the background as she applied her makeup with clinical precision. I liked watching her move through that routine, calm, practiced, familiar. She'd kiss me once on the forehead, whisper something about a client call, then disappear into the city in a tailored coat and heels that clicked confidently on the pavement. Evenings were mine. I cooked most nights. It relaxed me. Caroline preferred to decompress in silence, her laptop open beside a glass of red wine, reading over campaign decks or jotting ideas into one of her legal pads. Sometimes she'd pause, lean back, and ask me to read over something. I liked those moments, the way she trusted my eye, the way she still asked for input even when she didn't need it. We hosted well. Friends commented often about how put together we were. How calm. I used to laugh at that. Calm wasn't something we performed, it was just who we were. There were no blow-ups, no tears on the bathroom floor. We knew each other's lines. We stayed in our lanes. Travel filled the space that might have gone to parenting. We saw Kyoto in the spring. Cinque Terre in the fall. She curated every trip like an art director, down to the Airbnb lighting and walking routes that avoided tourist traps. We took photos, but not the posed kind. She hated selfies. Preferred candid shots, me squinting at a map, her brushing croissant flakes from her coat. She said often how much she loved our freedom. We can leave any time, she'd remind me. No diapers, no screaming. Just you, me, and the whole world if we want it. And I agreed. I thought we were two people who had chosen each other and carved out a version of happiness on our own terms. I still remember the night we were asked, at a party, a mutual friend's engagement, why we hadn't had kids yet. It wasn't meant cruelly. Just the kind of question people ask when they don't know what else to say. Caroline smiled politely, then said, we didn't feel the need to replicate ourselves. The crowd laughed. Someone called it poetic. I laughed too. But that line stuck with me later. We didn't feel the need to replicate ourselves. Like we were an art project that didn't require a sequel. She never talked about kids. Never commented on babies in strollers or friends' pregnancy announcements. She'd send a card, maybe flowers, and move on. I admired that in her, the ability to respect someone else's path without needing to compare. We were building a different life. One built on clarity, space, and intention. Caroline had her circles. She kept them clean, compartmentalized, well managed. She had work friends, neighborhood acquaintances, old college contacts she caught up with once in a while. But she never blurred the lines between them. She was social in a curated way, the kind of person who RSVP'd early, brought a bottle of wine that matched the menu, and left just before the conversation got sloppy. She didn't dominate rooms, didn't perform for attention. But people noticed her. She had presence. I remember watching her at one of those wine and cheese nights our neighbors hosted. Half the guests were already 2 glasses in, but Caroline sat cool and focused, listening more than talking, asking questions people weren't used to being asked. Not invasive, just accurate. That was her gift. She made people feel seen without making them feel exposed. She handled awkwardness well. If someone made a comment about our child-free luxury, she'd deflect with grace. If a friend pushed a little too hard on, "Don't you ever regret not having a little one?" she'd smile, tilt her head, and say, "I'd rather pour myself into a life I know I'm suited for." That answer always shut people up, not because it was harsh, but because it sounded so certain. And I believed it. She'd come home from those gatherings and peel off her coat, hang it neatly, pour herself a glass of water and sit on the edge of the bed like she was deflating. I'd rub her shoulders while she told me who said something ridiculous, who was pregnant again, who was cheating on who. She never gossiped, exactly, she observed. Like an analyst studying behavior. Work gave her purpose, but she never brought home drama. She liked control. Predictability. She'd vent about projects that ran off the rails or clients who didn't know what they wanted, but she always ended those stories with, "It's handled." That was her favorite phrase. It's handled. She volunteered at a literacy program every other Saturday. Said it helped her keep perspective. I went with her once, sat in the back while she read to a small group of kids who watched her like she was made of magic. She didn't make a big deal out of it. She didn't post about it. It wasn't for appearances. Just something she did. We kept a tidy life, financially, emotionally, logistically. She knew when our warranties expired. I knew where we kept the passports. She liked blackout curtains, I liked sleeping with the window cracked open. We compromised. Date nights were regular. Not forced. Sometimes it was dinner downtown. Sometimes it was just pizza and an old documentary we'd already seen. We kept things interesting, not because we were afraid of drifting, but because we liked each other. She still laughed at my dumb impressions. I still remembered how she took her coffee. We weren't perfect, but we felt rare, like we'd figured out how to live without stepping on each other's space. Every now and then, someone would pull me aside, an old friend, my sister, a coworker, and say, "You two are solid. You're lucky." And I'd always answer the same way. I know. Because I did. I truly did. By the time we hit our 7th anniversary, life didn't feel like something we were trying to figure out anymore, it felt like something we were living, day by day, with confidence. Not dramatic. Not euphoric. Just real. Clean. Caroline was deep into her role at the firm by then. She was the kind of manager people described as unshakable. Even when things went sideways, a pitch fell through, a deadline got missed, she stayed steady. I'd hear her on the phone in the evening sometimes, calmly walking a team member back from chaos. Then she'd hang up, stretch her arms, and say something like, "Okay. That's done." She never brought her stress home. Or maybe she did, and just never showed it. Meanwhile, my own work was steady. I'd built a client base I liked, mostly small companies that needed branding help and design consistency. It wasn't flashy, but it gave me flexibility. I handled the home stuff more naturally, cooking, the bills, even remembering our neighbor's dog's name when we bumped into them on walks. Caroline appreciated that. We never had to talk about dividing responsibilities, it just happened. We'd gotten into the habit of Friday takeout nights, the kind where we didn't even pretend to plate the food. She'd slip off her heels, tie her hair into that lazy half bun, and curl up next to me on the couch while we watched something old we'd both already seen. Those were the nights we'd pause the TV halfway through, not because we were distracted, but because we'd started talking instead. About work. About books. About places we wanted to go next. One of those nights, she brought up Iceland. Not for the tourist spots, she said, but the stillness. I want to stand somewhere that doesn't need explaining. I didn't know exactly what she meant, but I wrote it down anyway. We planned trips months in advance. We always had something to look forward to. That's how she liked it, something on the calendar, even if it was a year away. She said having plans gave her peace. At home, we kept things clean, minimal. No clutter. Everything in its place. Even the refrigerator looked like it belonged in a catalog. She labeled leftovers. I organized the spice rack. We didn't do it for show, it was just how we functioned. Our social life was steady too. A few good friends, the occasional dinner invite, game nights with neighbors where she always crushed everyone at trivia. People liked her. She didn't say much at first, but when she did, it landed. And when she laughed, not the polite kind, but the real one, it made people lean in. We didn't argue much. Not because we avoided things, but because we respected the space between us. If something came up, we talked about it like adults. No raised voices. No slamming doors. Just the facts, the feelings, and the solution. We weren't flashy. We weren't loud. But we were consistent. And in a world where so many things feel uncertain, that felt rare. Caroline used to say we lived like grown-ups were supposed to. It started with a medical form. I was going through the filing cabinet looking for our mortgage paperwork, we were refinancing the house, and I needed a copy of the original loan terms. Caroline kept everything alphabetized in neat folders. Tax records, car titles, warranties. Of course she did. Tucked behind our insurance documents was a folder labeled simply, Health. I assumed it was ours, maybe old EOBs or vaccination records. I opened it without much thought. Inside were two forms. Both had Caroline's name at the top. The first was from 4 years ago, a standard annual physical. Nothing unusual. But the second was from a different provider entirely, dated just last year. A pediatrician. The name of the patient section was blacked out, cleanly, deliberately, but I could still make out that the form referenced a child's checkup. I stared at it for a minute, confused. We didn't have children. Caroline had made that clear from the beginning. She'd always said she didn't feel the pull, not biologically, not emotionally. We'd made peace with that. Built our life around it. Chosen it, even. I wondered if maybe she'd printed something out for a friend. She was organized like that, maybe she was helping someone fill out insurance paperwork. I left the form where I found it and didn't mention it. Not because I didn't trust her. Just because it felt like it had an explanation I hadn't reached yet. A few days later, I asked her casually if she'd ever considered volunteering for any kid-related organizations again. She'd done a literacy program years ago. I remembered how much she'd enjoyed it. She smiled. Too busy lately. Maybe someday. Nothing about her answer felt strange. If anything, she seemed a little wistful. But not evasive. Still, that form lingered in the back of my mind. That same week, I noticed something else. We were out running errands when she took a phone call and stepped away to answer it. Not unusual, she fielded calls all the time. But when she came back, she seemed off. Not shaken, exactly. Just quiet. Her eyes darted past me toward the store windows like she'd been pulled out of her own daydream. I asked, "Everything good?" She nodded quickly. "Yeah. Just a work mix-up. It's handled." She used that phrase a lot. It's handled. And maybe it was. Maybe the form was a favor, and the call was a legitimate mistake, and I was just stringing together unrelated things into a thread that didn't really exist. But once a question takes root in your brain, it doesn't let go just because the answers sound good. I didn't tell her I'd seen the pediatrician form. I didn't even feel like I was keeping a secret, just holding on to a curiosity I hadn't figured out yet. Maybe I didn't want to know the answer if it wasn't simple. We still moved through life the same way. We had brunch with friends. Booked flights for a fall trip. Laughed about a bad movie on a Tuesday night while folded into the same blanket. Everything looked normal. But I'd started listening harder. Not because I didn't trust her. Because I did. And that's what made the silence feel just a little too smooth. Caroline didn't like surprises. That was something I understood early in our relationship. She wasn't rigid, just precise. She planned ahead, mapped out her days, answered texts promptly, returned calls within a reasonable window, paid bills a week early. That's how she lived. So when her schedule started shifting in small, inexplicable ways, I noticed. It began with the gym. She usually went twice a week, always in the morning. Same time, same place, same route. But one Thursday, she mentioned she'd already gone earlier in the week. Felt like getting it out of the way, she said. Except. I had been up that morning. We'd eaten breakfast together. I would have seen her leave. I said nothing. The next Monday, she told me she was taking a long lunch to run errands. Not unusual. But I'd happened to pass her favorite grocery store while heading to a client meeting, and her car wasn't there. I even circled back once on the return trip, wondering if I'd missed it. Again, I didn't say anything. It wasn't like her to lie. But it also wasn't like her to be vague. And lately, there had been more of that vagueness creeping in. When I brought up a new show I thought we could watch together, she said, "Oh, I think I already started that one a while back." It didn't grab me. Except we always started series together. We had a system. One of us would suggest, the other would preview a trailer, and if it passed the vibe test, we cued it. But lately, I was realizing there were parts of her week, and parts of her head, I wasn't seeing anymore. One evening, I found her sitting on the back steps, barefoot, scrolling through her phone. She didn't notice me at first. Her face was soft, her expression somewhere between focused and far away, and the look she wore in that moment wasn't one I recognized. When she finally looked up, she smiled like nothing was strange. "Hey. You're home early." "I didn't want to get stuck in traffic," I said. "What are you reading?" She tilted the screen away slightly, then locked it. "Just an article someone sent me." I didn't press. She walked inside and kissed my shoulder in passing, and the moment was over. But it didn't leave me. Later that night, I opened her laptop. We'd always shared the home computer. Never locked, never monitored. I wasn't looking for anything, not really. But I found that her browser history had been wiped clean. Not just recently. All of it. Every tab. Every site. Every cached memory. Gone. Caroline wasn't the type to reset her history. She didn't even bother clearing cookies. If anything, she complained about how often websites logged her out. I sat there in the dark, hands still on the trackpad, wondering what exactly I was trying to justify. It wasn't guilt I felt. It was confusion. Like I'd been given pieces to a puzzle I never meant to open, and now I couldn't stop seeing the shape of something underneath it all. Still, I said nothing. No accusations. No questions. Because I didn't have anything. Not yet. Only a pattern that didn't match the woman I thought I knew. I started watching her differently. Not suspiciously, not at first. But attentively. The way you watch a performer after you realize the script might not be theirs. You don't want to believe it's an act. But something in the delivery feels off. Caroline still moved through our days like nothing had changed. She was warm, consistent, affectionate when it counted. She touched my back as she passed, still laughed at my terrible puns, still left notes on the fridge when she ran errands. But the moments between things had started to stretch. Her gaze would linger on nothing. Her silences lasted just a beat too long. Like she was somewhere else when she thought I wasn't looking. We hosted a dinner party that Saturday, for friends, good food, a little wine. She was perfect. Attentive, sharp, graceful. She remembered who didn't like cilantro, refilled glasses without asking, told a story about a client presentation that had everyone laughing. But I watched her closely. The way her eyes flicked toward her phone twice during the meal. How she stepped away when it buzzed, not urgently, but discreetly. I found myself clocking it, like counting seconds in a storm. After everyone left and the dishes were done, she curled up beside me on the couch. Her head rested on my chest, just like always. We sat in silence. No TV. No music. "You okay?" I asked, almost without thinking. She looked up. "Yeah." "Why?" "You've just seemed distracted." Her smile was immediate, practiced. "Just a lot at work." Q3 prep is a beast. That answer fit. It even sounded like her. But it didn't feel like her. I nodded. "Anything I can do?" She reached up and touched my face. "You're already doing it." I held her, and it should have comforted me. But I didn't feel her there. She'd become an echo in her own routines, still moving the same way, but without the weight I used to feel behind it. I started noticing smaller things. Her scent changed, not the perfume, but her natural smell. Faintly, almost imperceptibly. Like someone else's detergent. A new kind of soap. Something foreign. I opened the laundry bin one morning while she was in the shower and found a tank top I'd never seen before. Soft fabric. Fitted. Nothing unusual. But unfamiliar. I stared at it like it might give me an answer I couldn't name. That same afternoon, she was late coming home. Said traffic. Then added, stopped for a walk to clear my head. Caroline didn't walk randomly. She walked with purpose, with headphones, with a podcast cued. Not to clear her head. That wasn't how she functioned. I said nothing. Again. Because still, I had nothing. No text. No name. No slip. Only this growing space between what I knew about my wife, and what she was becoming when I wasn't watching. I started waking up before her, just to see what she did first. I sat on the edge of the bed one morning while she got dressed. She kissed my forehead like always, then paused at the mirror. She checked herself in a way she never had before. Like she was making sure someone, not me, would like what they saw. It was a Sunday afternoon when it happened. The kind of day that feels almost too calm, sun cutting through the clouds, just enough breeze to keep the air from sticking. I didn't have anything planned. Caroline had left earlier that morning, said she was meeting a former colleague for lunch and a long overdue catch-up. She offered no extra details, and I didn't press. After hours of aimless scrolling, I decided to get out of the house. There's a park a few neighborhoods over that I sometimes went to when I needed to clear my head, not one we frequented together, just a quieter spot with walking trails and an open green where families played. I parked near the main path and wandered without a real direction, trying to shake the weight that had been building in me for weeks. Everything inside me felt tight, like the world had been whispering that something was wrong, and I'd been refusing to listen. Then I saw her. At first, it didn't register. She was walking down the opposite path, just beyond a group of kids flying kites. Her hair was tied back, her posture relaxed. She was smiling, a smile I hadn't seen in months. Not the polite one, not the one reserved for clients or neighbors. A full, open smile. Like something had been unlocked. She wasn't alone. A man walked beside her, tall, sharp-jawed, maybe mid-40s. Not touching her. Not yet. 2 children, maybe 7 and 10, ran ahead of them, chasing a dog. Caroline called after one of them, laughing. The little girl ran back and grabbed her hand. Grabbed her hand. Caroline held it. Not awkwardly. Not as a stranger trying to be nice. But as a mother. And then the man turned and said something, and Caroline leaned in and kissed his cheek. Natural. Fluid. Familiar. I stopped walking. I just stood there. From where I stood, I could see everything clearly, the way she glanced down lovingly at the boy when he stumbled, how the man placed a hand on her back as they walked, how the kids orbited her like she was gravity. It wasn't a fling. It wasn't a second life she slipped into on weekends. It was a family. And she was part of it. She told me for years she didn't want children. That she never felt the pull. That she didn't see herself in the role. I believed her. I reshaped my life for her. And there she was. Living what she swore she never wanted, not just living it, but thriving in it. Loving it. My hands were shaking. I didn't move. I didn't call her name. I just watched as she bent down to tie the boy's shoe, kissed his head, stood up, and wrapped her arm around the man's waist like it had always belonged there. They walked past me without seeing. A perfect little unit. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember parking. I just remember sitting at our kitchen table, staring at my hands, trying to convince myself I hadn't imagined it. But I had seen too much. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd replaced me. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I was still too stunned, too raw. Confrontation would have meant questions, and I didn't want her answers. I didn't want to hear what excuse she'd prepared, or what version of the truth she'd been practicing. I wanted clarity. Documentation. Leverage. So I started quietly. I found her second phone the next morning. It was in her work bag, a slim, matte black device I'd never seen before. She left it unzipped when she went to shower. It buzzed once, quietly, and I didn't even hesitate. I picked it up, pressed the button, and there it was, a lock screen photo of those same children, all three of them at the beach, Caroline in the middle, arms around their shoulders. I knew then that this wasn't something new. This had been going on for years. She'd lived another life for a decade. I unlocked her laptop that night while she slept. I'd always known her passwords. She never thought she needed to hide them. Maybe she just stopped believing I'd ever look. There were folders. Dozens of them. Labeled by year. By school. By vacation. She documented everything, her other family, her other life. Emails with the man. Calendars with the kids' sports schedules. Photos from birthdays, holidays, even parent-teacher nights. She'd raised them. As their mother. While I, the man she told she didn't want children with, sat beside her on the couch and believed every word she said. I copied everything. Then I called a lawyer. By Tuesday afternoon, the divorce papers were drawn up. Irreconcilable differences. Immediate filing. Full retention of the house, vehicle, and joint savings. The second life. Let her explain that in court. But I wasn't done. I dug deeper into the man's background. His name was Michael. Married once, divorced 7 years ago. 2 children, full custody awarded to him under complex circumstances. No public details, just sealed documents and a mother who had seemingly vanished from the picture. Until now. It took some digging, but I found her, his ex-wife, Anna. She lived 2 towns over, worked at a clinic, and still listed the children's names on her public social media as, my heart, always. I sent her a message. A careful one. I know who your kids are living with. I know what he told the court to get full custody. I also know that his current partner has been living a double life, with another husband, and another home. If you're ready to reopen the case, I can help. She replied within an hour. We met the next day. I brought the evidence. She brought her lawyer. What we uncovered together unraveled everything. Michael had manipulated custody. Claimed instability. Painted Anna as a negligent parent while he quietly built a stable home with a woman who was still married, legally, financially, and in name, to someone else. Anna had rights. And now, she had proof. Her lawyer filed immediately. By the end of the week, Caroline received 2 letters. One from me. One from the state. She didn't come home that night. Didn't call. Didn't try to explain. She knew. Everything she built on deception was starting to collapse. And I was going to make sure it didn't stop. By the time the court summons landed in her inbox, Caroline had moved out. She didn't take much, a suitcase, a few folders, her laptop. She left her keys on the entryway table. No note. No text. Just silence, like she couldn't bear to speak the truth out loud. I didn't chase her. I didn't ask questions. I didn't care what story she told herself to sleep at night. My lawyer filed a motion the same day, divorce under grounds of fraud and emotional abandonment. We included copies of the evidence, bank statements, photos, 2 calendars showing identical dates spent with colleagues that matched family vacations with her other life. The documents spoke for themselves. Caroline tried to negotiate. Her lawyer sent over a polite but firm offer, split assets, joint consideration on the house, a clean break. My lawyer returned it unopened with 3 words stamped across the front, full denial pending litigation. She hadn't just lied. She had lived an entirely separate life for a decade. And I had all the receipts. Meanwhile, Anna's case gained momentum. With my help, her attorney built a detailed timeline showing how Michael had manipulated the original custody decision. He'd painted Anna as unstable, claimed she moved too often to provide a consistent home. But we now had 10 years of documentation showing that the stable home he'd provided was a legal sham, co-parented by a woman who was married to someone else the entire time. Anna filed for full custody with immediate removal of visitation rights pending review. The court didn't hesitate. A temporary restraining order was issued against Michael until an investigation could confirm the situation. The day after the ruling, Michael's employer, a mid-tier private firm, suspended him. They cited reputational risk. His role was client-facing, trust-based. The headlines were already circulating. Banker falsifies family structure in decade-long custody deception. It wasn't hard to find. Anna's lawyer made sure the right people saw it. By the end of the week, Michael had lost access to his work email, then his building. His LinkedIn quietly disappeared a day later. Caroline, for her part, didn't fight the divorce anymore. Her lawyer sent one final request: please consider private mediation to avoid press involvement. We declined. She'd made her choices in private. The consequences didn't have to be. I stayed in the house. It didn't feel poisoned, not exactly. Just quieter. Like the walls were still catching up to the truth. I boxed up her things without feeling much. Just methodical movements, labels on lids, no soundtrack playing in the background. The mail slowed. Her name disappeared from the accounts. Her things vanished from the closet. She became a ghost that didn't haunt me, just passed through. Maya, one of the neighbor's daughters, asked me one afternoon, "Is Miss Caroline away for work again?" I smiled gently. "No, sweetie. She's not coming back." She nodded like she understood. The truth was, I wasn't grieving her. I was grieving the version of my life that never actually existed. And somehow, that made it easier. The house is quiet now. Not hollow, not the kind of silence that screams, just still. Even. There's a rhythm to it. Coffee at 7:15. A walk at noon. Books left half-read on the arm of the couch. No scattered keys. No second life pressed into the corners of the closet. It's mine again. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks ago. No mediation. No shared assets. My name stayed on the deed. The accounts were untouched. She didn't try to fight for anything, not after the evidence made its way into the court files. Her lawyer's final message was 3 lines long: she accepts the ruling. There will be no appeal. That was the last time I heard her name through official channels. Anna's case closed shortly after. The ruling was swift: full custody reinstated, visitation revoked, and Michael ordered to submit a formal statement of apology through the court. He resisted. Then folded. Her lawyer dismantled his defense with a calm, surgical clarity. She won her children back. And I watched her do it with a quiet fire that never once burned out. We kept in touch. Not in a romantic way. Not yet. Just updates. Shared experience. A quiet understanding that both of us had been living inside someone else's lie, and neither of us had asked to be part of it. One evening, she dropped off a thank you note at my door. Just a folded card in a plain envelope. Inside, it said, "I didn't know how much I'd lost until someone reminded me I could fight for it." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The note sits in my drawer, right next to the divorce decree. Caroline never tried to explain. No apology. No admission. I imagine she's still with them, Michael and the kids, trying to rebuild whatever version of the story still fits. Maybe she believes her silence is penance. Maybe she thinks I never really knew her. And maybe she's right. Because I didn't know her. Not really. I knew her presence. Her patterns. Her projections. But not the part of her that woke up early on Saturdays and kissed someone else's children on the forehead, then came home and told me she didn't believe she was wired for motherhood. I don't feel hatred anymore. Not even anger. I think that burned out somewhere between the paperwork and the packing. What's left is something simpler. Distance. Clarity. And space. I've started reclaiming things. Cooking more. Rearranging the furniture. I deleted every photo of us from my phone, then backed them up onto a drive I'll probably never open. Some things don't need to be erased. Just stored away where they can't spill over. People keep asking if I'm okay. I tell them yes. Because I am. Not healed, not in that perfect, over it, smiling on a beach way. But stable. Whole in the way that matters. I know what's mine now. I know what I'll never give away so carelessly again. And I know how to see through the softness of someone's voice when it doesn't match the weight of their life. The truth didn't set me free. It gutted me. But what came after, the calm, the stillness, the silence that doesn't lie. That's mine now. And no one gets to rewrite it.